Welcome to the Light Reading Podcast. I'm Phil Harvey. I'm an editor at Light Reading, and we are at the NV and SDN Americas event in Las Colinas. I have to keep saying Las Colinas, Texas, because we're not really in Dallas, even though it says Dallas. I'm here with Kelsey, Ziser. Hello, Kelsey.
Hello, Phil.
And Mitch Wagner.
Howdy, as your people say.
As my people say, that's true. They do say howdy. So we're at this event where we're talking about network functions, virtualization, and software-defined networking. This is a long-standing series of light reading events. We've been covering this for forever and a day, going back at least a decade, maybe more. No.
The Jurassic period, I think.
Yeah. 1863.
Right.
That's right. You're right.
No, we've been going back to, this was an NFV event by itself. Then we had an SDN event. Then we combined them. Then we had an automation event. We folded that in. Then we became part of Informa. We folded in its Network Virtualization World Series, and so now we have this.
It's a lot of folds, like origami.
I know and it's not a beautiful swan. It's this crazy multi-legged creature that's running amok. Yeah. No, the reason I bring up all of that is because that's really what's happening to the network itself. We have all of these different singular efforts that each operator is taking to improve their network, and it all kind of coalesces toward the cloud and 5G. They have to sort of, those things are sort of looming large. They have to get as much stuff operating and working in either cloud-like or in the cloud as possible, and they have to do it quickly, because if they don't, they're not going to be able to deliver or respond to 5G services. And my chair's squeaking, so that's good. Sorry. There we go. So that sort of sets the table for where we're at. At this show, we've heard from AT&T and a number of other operators. Did you guys have any reaction to either AT&T or any of the other big carriers that we've heard from?
Well, my reaction was just. Right, so I thought the one thing that jumps out at me right now is a comment that Josh Goodell from AT&T made. Yeah. That was pretty interesting, where he was just in general talking about how enterprises are going to be pulling 5G rather than consumer innovation. Yeah. Which really did address one of my pet peeves about 5G discussions, which it always seems to be talking about imaginary technologies. Right. The self-driving cars, which kind of don't exist yet, and robot surgery, which is you go first, and AR and VR, which I'm old enough to have been through 3 AR and VR revolutions at this point, and by gosh, this time people are really going to adopt it, not like all the other times when they rejected it. But enterprises need to do things. Yeah, they're doing them now, and they're doing them clumsily with IoT and intelligent factories and all these various instruments. And 5G is going to make it a heck of a lot easier.
Yeah, Josh shared a lot of healthcare applications. He mentioned, I think it's Rush Medical. Yeah, correct.
That was really cool.
Yeah, about mapping patients' facial reactions to see how much pain they're in. Yeah. Also giving doctors access to VR as another tool that they can use.
That is amazing for training purposes and stuff like that, because what I like about that is, we're all individuals, to get all artsy-fartsy with you, but we're, chemically and physically, we're all alike, but there's so many different things that some person could have. When a doctor discovers something or happens upon an anomaly of some sort, to be able to share that as close to lifelike as possible across borders and everywhere else, to say, hey, we had that, here's what it looked like, here's where we found it, here's what we did, so on and so forth. It doesn't seem like that's being done. It's being done today, but like you said, at the speed of medical journals. and this seems like it would be much more effective. A couple of quick things I pulled from his remarks. He talked about the journey that AT&T's network has had from the physical to the virtual, and then the virtual to the intelligent. Mm-hmm. And I like the fact that he makes that demarcation, because virtualizing a network simply doesn't get you to as far as you need to go to compete with web scale providers or to do things as fast as people are going to demand eventually.
I want to hear more from him on what he meant by that, because I don't know if this is what he meant, but what I have been hearing from a lot of carriers is that you start out with virtualization sounds great, but what you end up having is like a virtual appliance rather than a physical appliance.
Right.
It's like, yeah, you can run on x86 boxes, and that's great, but you have to get the x86 box from the same vendor that supplies you the virtual machine, and the virtual function will only work with other virtual functions from that vendor. So
Same headache, different hardware.
yeah.
And that was another discussion this week was Mike Frayne with Windstream talked about the economics of UCPE. So I think that ties into to your comment of even though it's going virtualized, are you really saving money? And then can you save money for your customers as well?
It does. That's the thing is the operator has to significantly cut down the margins and improve the ability to scale the application or the service. If they can't, they A, can't meet demand, B, they're never going to make any money on this, and they're mostly still connectivity providers. He also said that their network had grown in data traffic 470,000% from 2017 to 2018.
I think it was 2007. It may have been 400.
It's 'cause-
it was 2007 to
Yeah.
2018. Sorry.
It's because
And it
that's
may
when
have been-
Mitch discovered cat videos, and so it just kind of like skyrocketed.
It may have been 407,000 rather than 470,000, but seriously, is that different?
It's a heck ton of a lot, as we say around here.
I'm gonna need you to stay off YouTube for a while.
I do, yes.
For the good of the network.
The cats, they are so cute walking across the piano, though. How can I resist?
So many cats, so many pianos. We're going to get that on a T-shirt. Let's talk about the Women in Comms breakfast the panel. So first of all, you had breakfast and you had a panel. There we go. I covered that. All right, next. No, I'm kidding. One of the points that I pulled out of that was that I never really thought about before about how 5G sort of affects women in the workplace. But there were two huge kind of aha moments. The first was that the companies themselves, as they become more efficient, the management structures are kind of flattening out, and network automation that enables 5G is going to restructure things. And that's kind of like, that could make it harder or easier for women in the workplace, depending on, what they decide to do and how they apply themselves and whether they make their goals known and that sort of thing. The other thing was that 5G, just the improvement in connectivity and throughput, how it just brings more of everything to everywhere. That was another outstanding point because we all champion the idea of working from home, and a lot of us work from remote offices, but to be able to truly work anywhere and not have any asset in your company inaccessible for any length of time is pretty amazing. And also the real-time nature of it, being able to communicate better in different circumstances. I imagine some 5G apps are going to come along that are going to take video conferencing to some other level.
Holograms, maybe.
Yeah, right. Something like that. Yeah. So, I mean,
We had a really interesting discussion this morning, and talked about how 5G could support the remote workforce more, just because you'd have such reliable internet and be able to do better video conferencing, maybe holograms. Who knows?
hey, I can't wait. It'd be cool.
Yeah.
There was those 2 points stuck out to me. Was there anything else from the panel that kind of that maybe we hadn't heard before, or something that
One thing that Prajakta Joshi with Google Cloud was talking about is how that 5G could break down the silos within telcos or vendors as well, and having network talk to IT to cloud. And she works on both the telco and the enterprise side. So breaking down those barriers within the organization, and then also employees will have to find a way to specialize in something, but also be good at a lot of different things because all these departments are talking to each other.
Right.
So we talked a bit about what soft skills would be important in addition to technical skills. And one thing Christina Cheng with AT&T advised the audience to do is find projects where you're going to be visible, where your success will be visible.
Yeah, that's good advice. About I think she's right about different jobs sort of having things added onto them, or sort of becoming more, forcing people in the workforce to kind of be more adaptable to whatever's around it. I mean, that happens it's happened in media, in particular, because we're doing this. We all started out as writers and editors, and now we're.
I think Mitch used to have a stone tablet.
He did.
that
Yeah, that's
yeah.
right.
Well, you're laughing. In my college newspaper, we had like manual typewriters. It was kind of retro even for then, but still.
I went to school with a guy named Manuel typewriter, but we started out in one medium, and yet had to take those skills and apply them to to podcasting, to video, to holograms, or whatever's coming next.
I'm actually not here.
Okay. She keeps saying that. Someday I'm going to believe it. But anyway, I love it when I go to an event and somebody says something that's kind of right out there in the open, and it just makes you go, oh yeah, I've never thought of the problem that way before. I've never thought of the enabling technology as being able to change things like that. That's pretty cool.
More and more jobs these days are becoming relationship jobs.
Right. Yeah.
A and B, the skills that you learn become portable. Mm-hmm. Developers have a saying, once they've learned to program in one language, they can pick up another one really, really fast because it's just a skill. And you were talking about our work as journalists. I don't know how much the metaphor applies to telco at all, but there was always the case that you had to be able to write fast. Yeah. Large metro dailies had 12 editions in the mid-century, so that was much like the continuous cycle of the web.
Very DevOps.
Yeah,
but with people smoking around you.
Yeah. and armbands. Honey, get me rewrite. This is a doozy. But to bring it into telco, you're still whatever technology you're using, whether it be microservices or switches, you still have to connect people. People require connectivity.
I love that. That's a great word. A doozy. Okay. Yeah. Sorry. We're back. I'm Phil Harvey. This is a light reading podcast. I'm here with Kelsey Ziser.
Hey, Phil.
Here with Mitch Wagner.
Oi.
That's high would have been fine, but thanks, Mitch. So we're talking about the NV and SDN America show. We're here in Las Colinas, outside of Dallas, where the show is taking place. And our friend Ray Watson from Masergy, he was talking about SD-WAN today, but he also talked about everything else, as he tends to do. And one of his points was to remind the audience of mostly telco people that enterprises really don't care about our networks or what we're building or how difficult they are to manage, et cetera, et cetera. They care about their applications, full stop. So that's a good place to talk about SD-WAN, because that's really, there's so much going on with SD-WAN, and we might tend to lose sight of really all people want to do is get their connectivity and not lose their Salesforce stuff. Right. And that sort of thing. But SD-WAN keeps coming up again and again at this show. Any insights or observations?
Sure, thank you. John Ish with Orange was back again this year, and he talked a bit about how he starts a conversation with customers, starting with security, and he likes to have the security people in the room because that's a very important piece to SD-WAN. He also talked about how the industry expected a lot more vendor consolidation at this point. We still have 30 vendors. Someone else today said 40. I think Ray said 72. So there's just a lot out there. But John said there's been a lot of horizontal integration, which is interesting with, for example, Cisco acquiring Viptela. Right. Those companies that have business services in their DNA are finding that SD-WAN is a good play for them.
Yeah. The horizontal integration is interesting because when Cisco, I think this is their second or third SD-WAN type purchase, and each time they seem to find a different sliver of the enterprise market that they're aiming, toward with that thing, and so we quickly get away from this one vendor can do it all approach. It seems like it's going to be quite fragmented and quite specialized for a number of years, right?
Well, first of all, a couple points there. First of all, I think John Ish is a fantastic name. It's like, he's not John, he's John Ish.
Sort of John.
Yeah, sort of John. So, and I'm sure he never hears jokes about his name, so he'll be glad to hear this one. The second point, is that SD-WAN has evolved into the intelligent layer that's on top of all the other transports.
Yeah.
All the other links. So it's on top of the public internet, it's on top of MPLS, it's on top of LTE, it will be on top of 5G, and it coordinates all the connectivity together. And this is important because enterprises now have pieces all over the world and they're connecting to the cloud as well. And yeah, to Ray Watson's point, this is the telco stuff is if they're doing the jobs, it's invisible.
Right.
You know, enterprises don't even care about the applications; they care about getting work done.
Yeah, and I think that I cringe a bit because even though that's the truth, we find that telco marketing and commercials and things like that have all these network numbers and speeds and feeds, and like, look how impressive our network is, and nobody's like, nobody cares. I want Netflix. Shut up. But there's still this sort of steadfast refusal for them to do exactly that, to just do your job and go away in the background. Just be good at what you do.
John also mentioned that the conversation around SD-WAN has changed from cost savings with their customers. They were promoting this is a way that you can save money. And now it's just different feature sets within SD-WAN that they're marketing towards their customers, because you've got the different security partnerships with the Fortinets, Palo Altos, things like that, and then the ability to manage your traffic differently, have MPLS for those business critical applications, but then also have SD-WAN.
Yeah, it makes for more flexible enterprise all the way around, which is what we want, right?
Yeah, one of the telco speakers, and I've forgotten the name, so you can check light reading in the future to see who it was, because it's in my notes and I'm writing it up. He was saying how he had expected there to be more consolidation by now. And instead what you're seeing is horizontal integration with Cisco buying Viptela.
Yeah, that was Johnish.
That was Johnish?
Yep.
Yeah.
You might have heard that from Kelsey, who said it like 5 minutes ago. Yeah.
I'm going somewhere with this. I'm a serious person here, damn it.
I wasn't going to say it, thanks, Phil.
And I'm freaking out. But he was saying that it has made it kind of more difficult to shop. Because if you had the smaller vendors out there, it would be able to assemble the best of breed applications and put it together. But Cisco wants to do everything. VMware wants to do everything. Right. Yeah. And you get these vertically integrated stacks, which candidly makes, he didn't say this, but I'm interpreting it, it makes it a little bit harder for the telco to stay in business. Yeah. Because why doesn't the Cisco just sell directly to the enterprise or sell through the telco as a channel, as opposed to the telco being the solution provider and owning the relationship?
I think it'll come to that eventually with connectivity. I think connectivity is going to have to be offered any way that it could any way that a connectivity-oriented application reaches a customer, they might as well become a reseller in some capacity.
Where are you going with this?
Well, I think not related to this conference specifically, but all of the major telcos have invested huge amounts in their channel programs. They've made it easier and more flexible and a little more friction-free for any type of enterprise to resell connectivity. And I think that seems like a strategic bet. It doesn't seem like an accident, and it doesn't seem like a defensive move either. It seems like once they build out their network, they're going to want to try to connect as many people as possible, and that means exploring as many channels as possible, down the road.
So the enterprise sells the connectivity to its customers?
It could. Anything that is enterprise, that is an enterprise that acts like a service provider. So think about Cisco with WebEx or something like that. Yeah. I'm not saying they do that now or that they're even planning on doing it. I'm saying that the possibility exists that down the road they could simply take a version of that service and say, oh, and if you buy this version, you'll have all this connectivity, it comes with all the connectivity you need for your entire office, plus WebEx, plus the conference phone, plus the whatever. So they just take that extra step. They're already riding atop the connectivity and providing everything else you want to do with it for an enterprise, and all the routing and all the stuff. Why not take that extra step? Again, this is just me putting 2 and 2 together and getting 5, so I don't know if it'll actually play out that way in the market, but the pieces all seem to be in place, and like I said, all sides have invested a lot in channel programs, whereas 5 years ago AT&T was kind of kind of balkanized about its channel programs. It had 4 or 5 different channel programs. They all fought with one another. They didn't work together. Now they have one big one, and it seems to be catching on. We're back. It's the Light Reading Podcast, but we're back only long enough to say goodbye. So let's wrap up. Any last observations or thoughts from the NV and SDN America show?
The coffee could have been better.
It really could have been. Thank you for saying that.
You're welcome.
It could have been better, and there could have been more of it. To go ahead and cover all bases. Mitch, anything?
I'm disappointed to learn we are not in Irving, Texas, because it's just a hello, Irving, how are you?
Well, you can do that. You have to get on a really high floor, and you can see Irving.
Hello, Irving.
No, we are in Las Colinas, which is kind of a made-up city, but it's here nonetheless. It has lovely fountains and golf courses and things like that, and terrible coffee.
And geckos.
It has geckos. All of Texas has geckos. Yeah. So anyway, we'll leave it with that. From Geckoville. This is the Light Reading Podcast. This is edited by Tien Fu in New York. And if you want the show notes and anything related to the NV and SDN Americas conference, please go to lightreading.com. Thank you and goodbye.